What I'd like to do is hand over to Nadeem. Nadeem's the chair of JUST. And
thank you, Zuleika. First and foremost, can I just begin by thanking you all for turning out in such great numbers tonight at this inaugural event to officially launch JUST Yorkshire and the launch of our research into prevent. I'd also like to take this opportunity to extend my thanks to the staff, particularly Fiaz and Praveen, and the board for making tonight happen in what has been incredibly tight time scales. More than that, I'd like to thank the board for their support and commitment this year. They've provided, and I know it's been particularly difficult and challenging, particularly given the fact that we lost Ratna Lachman this year. I'd like to thank our donors, our grant providers, JRCT and Open Society Foundation. Without your support, we would probably not be here today. Can I also say what an honour it is to share a platform today with such distinguished guests, Nader Khan and Professor Neil Cooper. Professor Gus John was going to attend today, but unfortunately he's been taken ill. But he has promised me that he's going to do a review on the prevent report that's been released, and that will be on our website for you to access after. So who am I? My name is Nadeem Murtuja. I'm the chair of JUST Yorkshire, formerly known as JUST West Yorkshire. JUST has been around for the best part of a decade and now is regarded by some, particularly in the north, as the most prominent human rights charity in the north of England. The reason for our success is due to the spirit of one woman and one woman only, the late civil rights leader Ratna Lachman. So I want to begin tonight with a tribute, whilst at the same time trying to provide you with an insight into the work of JUST. I got involved with JUST approximately 3 to 4 years ago, initially as a volunteer, then as a bit of a columnist writing in the Racial Justice Bulletin, and then latterly as a board member and subsequently as a chair. In all of that time, and to be perfectly truthful, most of that time was spent learning from and being a sidekick to Ratna Lachman. I have to tell you that I was then, and I still am now, in complete awe of this woman. Great sense of humour, courageous, brave and inspirational, not just to me, but I'm sure to many of you too. Frankly, I do not know of any other person that I've met that has done more for human rights, particularly the Muslim community, challenging patriarchal structures, minorities and feminism than Ratna. I think it's fair to say that in the latter years of Ratna's life, she took a backseat because of the impact that cancer was having on her life. And I'm sure there's people in this room who can relate to that too. But despite that, Ratna never ever let ill health lose her focus, or even stopped working, even when she was actually in the hospice. Ratna always remained the organisation's compass, pointing us in the right direction, wherever we were most needed. Whilst we have maintained our presence in West Yorkshire, our journey has landed us in Rotherham due to the unique challenges Rotherham and the local community have faced. This is where we have now located our main office, and it's the most fitting place for us to launch JUST Yorkshire. Not with good technology. I'm sure you'll recognise that picture. That's a picture of Ratna and I on our journey to Rotherham. This picture is taken from one of my all-time favourite films, Sholay. The term Sholay translates into flames. For me, JUST Ratna and the film Sholay share very similar and many similar characteristics. And I'd also probably like to point out Fiaz would play a really good Gabbar Singh. You may be thinking, where's he going with this, but just bear with me. In the film Sholay, there's a police officer who wants revenge against a notorious bandit by the name of Gabbar Singh, who murders his family. This bandit oppresses a whole village. He takes away their rights and crops. He makes them pay extortionate taxes. And as part of that deal, he provides them protectionist services too. They are limited to the amount of food they can eat, including from the crops they themselves cultivate. And Gabbar Singh never provides them with a living wage either. He imposes a philosophy to ensure the villagers will always feel and they should always remain indebted and dependent on him. Sound similar? Whilst all this is happening, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, inequality widens, and the seldom heard, well, they hardly ever get heard. The police officer in this film, tired of lack of state integrity, accountability, the lack of moral conscience and competence to deal with the issues that are blighting that village and the community, hires two helping hands, who then begin to fight against all the odds to restore the rights of those village people. It is a brilliant film, and I would strongly encourage you to watch it. The reason I share that example with you is because in real life, it's a lot more than fiction. It requires people like Ratna and organisations like JUST to stand firm and unapologetically speaking truth to power. Not compromise because of some membership to a political club, and to speak without fear of consequences. Let me assure you, Ratna did those things, and she had the scars to prove it too. But I can also tell you that those scars sometimes really, really hurt. Though Ratna would wear those badges, those scars as badges of honour, used as recognition that she must be doing something right. Ratna believed that the greatest racism and human rights abuse of the modern world is by those people in positions of power that make it their aim to deny that racism, discrimination, human rights abuses even exist. Because if the racism, compromise and abuses don't exist, then frankly, for both commissioners, policy makers and those people in power, no one can hold them to account, and B, these institutions don't have to do anything about it. It is what McPherson described as institutional racism at Middlesex University when they reviewed the NHS, titled their report Snowy White Peaks. Ratna worked tirelessly to change this, though she knew most stakeholders, policymakers, wanted organisations like JUST to shut up, stop talking about race and social justice. But I have to say to you, in the JUST family, we always wondered why these people in power with all their resources was expend all that energy trying to shut us up rather than actually do something about racial and social justice. It's bizarre. And this despite the fact that there is a wealth of evidence and research which actually provides both a strong moral and economic case to address those inequality issues. And it becomes even more pertinent in a period where there's depleting resources and austerity, because we all have to worry what the consequences will actually have for our communities and generations to come. Ratna was of the view that JUST needed to shine the light, or as she would put it, hold up a mirror to these issues and inequalities, and the many other racial and social inequalities that minorities face daily, and we're likely to continue to face if the current navigational trajectory does not shift, whether those relate to civil liberties, representation, life opportunities or outcomes, particularly as we head towards a post-Brexit world. Realising that change needed to come, Ratna and the JUST board committed to make internal changes. We had to stop becoming just a powerful lobbying and campaigning organisation, and we needed to actually have operational teeth too. Therefore, in the final 2 years of Ratna's life, we started to put in place a much needed policy and research and advocacy function that will work primarily for the needs of vulnerable communities and minorities, putting together evidence and research from grassroots up, and that we can use in our campaigning and lobbying functions. Because if JUST doesn't take that position, then we don't know who will. Tonight, you will be presented with one such report presented by Dr. Murtuja and Dr. Waqas Tafil. Ratna was a fearless, unapologetic and driven individual. I suppose the English term for what she had, some people would say, fire in her belly. I would say inextinguishable fire surely in the core of her spirit. Ratna is the reason I and the JUST board stand here today. Lord Erwin Ousley paid this tribute to Ratna. I am told good leaders create followers. Great leaders create good leaders. I believe that great leaders give. They are selfless, relentless, determined, dedicated and clear-minded. Ratna, you are all of those things. You give selflessly, inspire us, inform us, shape our thinking, sharpen our knowledge and understanding, set the communication agenda for us and keep us focused on the current struggles affecting our communities who experience injustices, discrimination and unfair treatment. We owe you, but we repay you with thanks, appreciation, love, admiration, trust and respect. Above all, we aspire to be like you, to keep the faith in pursuit of racial justice and fair treatment for all, not a bad legacy for a very special person. Today we'll be launching 3 milestones. Our annual report, which is actually on your tables, which I'll take you through on behalf of Ratna. The Ratna Lachman Recognition Award for Services to Equalities and Human Rights, and our review into Prevent. Before I finish this tribute to Ratna and move on to our annual report, I think I should say why we're launching the Ratna Lachman Recognition Award and what we hope it will mean for those people who work in the civil rights and human rights world. As many of you know, Ratna was never honoured or awarded an MBE, OB or even a CBE. She strongly objected to it. The reason for this is simply because she would not have the term empire associated to her name. For example, recently many of you will have celebrated or even commemorated 70 years of partition between India and Pakistan. Some of us also call it independence because of the freedom from the British Raj. That also had implications for Bangladesh. Irrespective of any of our positions, one thing is undeniable. Hundreds and thousands of innocent people lost their lives through partition, mainly because of sectarian violence. Factually speaking, throughout JUST's existence and Ratna's work, we have been supporting many people from that part of the world or people who share a similar history. Today, here in the UK and other parts of the world, there are many people who still bear the scars of divide and rule, which also includes the impact of 200 years of colonialism and imperialism too. Ratna was of the view, what message would it give to all those people given her role with JUST if she was then awarded a symbol that somehow honoured the empire? Is that really an honour, she would say? She would often say, where is the moral conscience and sense in that? Ratna was a peerless woman that had incredible, unbreakable principles. She was born with an incredible spirit, from her human rights work in Singapore right through to her work here in Yorkshire, taking on issues relating to hate, counter-terrorism, feminism, Islamophobia, and so on and so on. For Ratna, it wasn't an obligation to speak up for those people that suffered injustice. It was part of her natural being. In every part of her body, suffused in her DNA, to her, it was her life's purpose. This award we are launching today is in memory of all those honorary awards that Ratna should have received in her life, but never did. Every year when one person or organisation is honoured with this recognition award, for me and the JUST family, it keeps the Ratna legacy alive and hopefully inspires a further generation too. Ratna is incredibly missed by the JUST family, and I know by many of you too. She lived a life to ensure in every corridor of power, a JUST voice is heard. So I ask you to join me and raise your glasses to the incredible woman, Ratna Lachman. Ratna, that was for you. So now to the annual report. This is the boring bit. Let me begin by saying, if you believe in racial and social justice, equality, civil liberties, freedom, feminism, the rights of people to practice their beliefs, religious or not, you believe in human rights. Frankly, you should believe in the work of JUST. Our vision is to promote a just, fair and equal society by working alongside communities and key stakeholders in Yorkshire and beyond to promote racial justice, civil liberties and human rights as a bedrock of policy, practice and legislation. Our mission is to be recognised, as a regional leader for challenging racism and racial injustice and advancing values which bring about positive changes in the lives of the region's visible minorities through empowering them to improve their life chances, challenging discrimination and speaking truth to power. JUST is a racial justice, civil liberties and human rights, secular human rights charity that campaigns for racial and social justice, civil liberties and human rights primarily in the north of UK. We actively promote dignity, human dignity, equal treatment and fairness as the foundations of a democratic society. Our work is underpinned by the principle that the freedom of all people, regardless of human characteristic or belief, is interconnected. To compromise the freedom of one human being is tantamount to compromising the freedoms of the entire human race. Therefore, it is our mission to ensure that human rights are upheld in the way we practice our civil liberties. The legislature designs policy, the services we all access, and the method with which the law is interpreted in our courts. Our goal is always to achieve social and racial justice. This year has been incredibly challenging for JUST. We lost 80% of our funding. Most of our previous board members moved on to different organisations or either joined new projects. And needless to say, for Ratna, trying to deal with a life-threatening illness and trying to sustain a job charity at the same time has been incredibly challenging. Despite these challenges, you will have gauged from my forward in the annual review, JUST still managed to achieve many successes. Our highlights. Internally, we've transformed the organisation. We have a new name, a new website and a new board. We've moved from just being a powerful lobbying force. We now also provide services like advocacy and policy and research, which helps actually inform our campaigning and policy lobbying functions. We have put together a multidisciplinary board ranging from skills that include journalism, law, activism, filmmaking, academia, policy development, digital technology, and business development. We have continued to lobby government to ensure our human rights are not compromised, particularly when the Tories attempt to replace it with the Bill of Rights. We continue to press the government to ensure the rights of EU nationals and their status are not compromised as these Brexit negotiations go on. Our Racial Justice Bulletin continues to develop with a subscription membership in excess of 3,000 people and organisations. Our press releases and media impact continues to grow from strength to strength, with highlights that included, in 2 weeks, 67,000 different reactions on Twitter, and in some months and weeks, on average, 2,500 visits to our website and our Facebook page. We continue to challenge hate crime. We continue to challenge hate crimes. Following the EU referendum, we were at the forefront on tackling the rise in hate crime and produced an anti-racism video that was watched more than 50,000 times, with the Police Crime Commission in areas like Gwent signing up to it and retweeting it on our behalf. We continue to hold institutions to account. For example, we were at the forefront of holding West Yorkshire Police to account for the death of Yasser Yaqub. Preventing riots are seen as other parts of the country, because with our ear to the ground, we were able to ask the questions that mattered most to the community. We have successfully dealt with more than 20 advocacy requests since we quietly launched our advocacy function in the spring of this year. Those cases that we've dealt with are actually in your annual report. I can't remember what page. Our partnership with the European Network Against Racism continues to grow from strength to strength, and we continue to make regular representation to the EU Commission. We have contributed to academic literature and research. We have contributed to academic literature and research with chapters from our board members, something quite pertinent for Rotherham: political correctness, the racialisation of the Rotherham child sexual abuse scandal. We've been invited and facilitated regional events to discuss the impact on community relations in a pre- and post-Brexit world. We continue to provide representation through the use of evidence to protect communities from right-wing populism and narrative at a local, regional and national level, so that the political elite do not sell out minorities because they continue to be seduced by power. We continue to feature in mainstream media. whether that's writing columns, whether that's local national TV or in the radio. We actually have quite a strong media impact. We are proud to be social justice partners on the film Freesia, the first film in this country on Islamophobia, which is now playing in all the national cinemas across the country. We continue to establish our policy and research function, and we will be publishing our findings in relation to the impact of Prevent Children here in a short while. So how do we operate? We operate through this board. This is the board that I lead. It has the multidisciplinary skills to actually shape and build and develop and take the organisation in the right direction. Every single one of our board members is only selected because they have human rights at their core, and we make no apologies for that selection. The board is responsible for the governance of the organisation, the business plan to realise the vision and the objectives of the organisation. Each board member is required to sign up to the 7 Nolan Principles of Public Life and is monitored stringently against each principle. The board meets regularly and at least on a bi-monthly basis. We ensure we manage our programmes and projects efficiently. Each board member is required to go through a rigorous, insightful induction which comprises of the 5 following workshops. First and foremost, every board member needs to be clear about their board member responsibilities. They need to have the capacity to be able to manage and our finances, shape the organisation, provide leadership and understand the legal framework within which we operate. We have a policy and legal framework which every board member needs to have an understanding from, and that should also include having a good understanding of equality, human rights and counter-terrorism legislation, because without actually having an understanding of the legislative framework, how can you actually lead in terms of tackling these issues, particularly where there are breaches in terms of civil liberties and human rights. We have quite a robust project and programme management function. We ensure all board members are skilled in managing programmes from inception to mobilisation. They understand the principles of accountability, how to align and design resources, particularly if you read our annual report and you realise how limited we are in terms of resources. Our board is responsible for managing our funding strategy. We set our funding strategy for at least 1 year ahead, so we're able to actually manage risk, and we're also able to actually ensure that there's sustainability as we go ahead and forward. And we have a strong communications and marketing function to ensure that our profile continues to build, so when we actually ask the questions that need to be asked, they actually have an impact locally, regionally, nationally, and sometimes across Europe too. And supporting the whole of that is the role of our CEO, our director, the Late Ratna Lachman, who provides the organisation leadership, support, and works alongside me as the chair. Our functions can be separated into 4 areas. So 1, we actually have 2 principal functions, policy and research and advocacy, absolutely critical. And both of those functions enable us to influence the way we campaign and the way we actually lobby, whether it's local, regional and national level. Let me talk a little bit about advocacy. Our JUST advocacy function is designed for those who have no recourse to public funds, no legal aid, or simply do not know which way to turn for support. It is delivered at 3 levels. Firstly, we provide signposting and advice services where people just simply require direction. At level 2, we assist those people that already have legal support in place, though require a second opinion, or require just to articulate on their behalf either verbally or in writing. At level 3, we support people that require legal support, particularly those who have no recourse to public funds in exceptional circumstances. JUST will always pay for, JUST will also pay for that legal consultation and support on behalf of the complainant. The reason why we actually do these 3 levels is because we annually unpick each one of the cases that we go through. We identify trends, we identify issues which are affecting minorities. That enables us to actually capture very detailed evidence. So when we're actually lobbying or campaigning, we're not just talking based on opinion or view or anything else, we're talking based on evidence directly taken from the ground. Then we have our policy and research function. Our policy and research function is predicated on undertaking strategic evidence-based reviews of the impact via the local, regional or national policy on civil liberties and human rights. Our policy and research work is traditionally bottom-up. In other words, it is based mainly on qualitative research and can include literature reviews, focus the analysis of case studies that I've already spoken about. JUST works on a very, very simple principle, that our recommendations must always be underpinned by evidence and must be robust enough to stand up to independent scrutiny, so that when we put recommendations to policymakers or commissioners, we do so based on evidence rather than opinion or general feeling. The policy and research function fits hand and glove with our advocacy function. Together, they provide useful and unique evidence from the ground up to support JUST to fulfil our campaigning and lobbying functions effectively and work towards realising our vision as an organisation. JUST is committed to developing these functions further in the future so we can impact even a more tremendous policy punch that begins to influence real change. But let me say this, because of our capacity, we are always limited to how much we can actually take on. So we are also very honest about that. On page 14, you will actually have, of the annual report, you will see the level of resources we have as an organisation. Examples of our work. So examples of our work, if you go on to page 12 in your annual report, you will actually see some case studies. I'm just going to actually highlight one case study today, which has had a tremendous impact on the community in Rotherham. And that's the case study of Subhan Ali. That's this little boy here who drowned in a canal. And there is a 2-day coroner's inquest on the 6th and 7th of September. We have been supporting the mother of Subhan. And I can assure you that whatever happens, JUST will support that family to find out exactly what happened to that boy. It's what we're about, it's what we will do. Our future plan. Firstly, we are committed to keeping alive Ratna Lachman's legacy. Through the work of JUST and the National Award Ceremony we aim to launch next year, in partnership with organisations like Apnahak. I've just spoken to Alan in relation to Ukraine to potentially sign up to that National Award Ceremony. Next year, we will keep Ratna Lachman's legacy alive. We will fully democratise the board, so board members will only serve terms. We will increase diversity on the board. I want JUST to be the most representative and powerful organisation in the region because its conscience and decisions come from a place rooted in diversity. We will launch a young people's JUST board in West Yorkshire with an upper age limit of 30, though with no lower limit. Let young people set their own agenda, become ambassadors for change. We will provide all the support and the resources that board needs, including our bespoke induction programme. We will make JUST more financially sustainable. We will develop and embed our further functions, policy, research, advocacy, lobbying and campaigning. We will increase our partnership working capacity without compromising our independence. We will provide high quality evidence-based reports, including being commissioned to do so. We will open up our organisational skills to other organisations and the community. We will continue to work with stakeholders to help and support them to build solutions to tangibly tackle inequality that plagues minorities. Finally, to be successful as an organisation, we have one aspiration, that within 5 years, we hope that one day we can replicate the JUST model in another region. Now I said we. I don't mean just the board, the pictures you actually saw on that slide. I mean you all too. And your success is our success. And I'm just going to leave you with this final thought. Just support us to get a JUST voice heard. Thank you.